All right, all right. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Go ahead and settle on down. Welcome into another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay. My dog was just on top of me almost, trying to give me a kiss. So that was real sweet of him. Doggy kisses will be a theme of today's show, I'm sure. But nonetheless, welcome in. Before we get too far into it, a little bit of business here. Wherever you're listening, please go down to the description of said platform. In the description, very tippy top, you'll see, first and foremost, before you can even read what this episode's about, it'll have a link and an invitation to the email newsletter. The email newsletter comes out 2 times a week. Comes out once on the weekend to promote the episode that just dropped. And then also it then comes out during midweek to then promote the same episode, but also to give you guys a midweek boost with some young dad advice, some young dad tips and tricks, some young dad hacks, a young dad mental health tip, um, and then just overall some words of encouragement to get you through the week. As it very often, I feel like I'm slogging about midweek, so I need a little bit of boost of encouragement. So I use that for my own encouragement to give that back to you guys as well. So absolutely free. I don't record your emails. I'm not taking your emails. I'm not going to give your emails over to everyone who's ever listened to the show that has an email list. That's on you to decide. So with that, I would love if you went down and subscribe to the email newsletter. It would mean a ton. Best way to support the podcast there. Without further ado, let me introduce Martin. Martin, welcome to the podcast. Super excited to have you. You are the host of podcast Dad Bedtime Stories, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And you make up stories that double as visualizations to help kids sleep,
Yep.
which is really cool because I personally feel a lot of kids, my older one especially for a really long time, struggles with her sleep. She still to this day struggles with her sleep. She just has such an active little mind. She's very thought provoking. She's very thoughtful. She always has ideas going through her head. She always has some creativity flowing. She's so smart. She's so intelligent. But it's so hard to get that little girl to calm her brain down because she just doesn't want to. She doesn't know how. And it can get her very overwhelmed at different times to where she has a hard time just calming down, mellowing it out. So I love what you do here because it's so important for kids to have that. So go ahead and tell us a little bit more about the podcast, about yourself, and yeah.
Yeah, I guess I started the podcast for that exact reason. Like especially when my oldest son, he's 9 now actually, but when he was just starting school is really when he started to have more trouble sleeping because he had trouble shutting his mind off at nighttime, just thinking all the time about this and that, right? And like bouncing around. And so one night I just decided I would make up a visualization for him because at some point in my life, someone when I went to this camp, like a summer camp, the camp counselor did this visualization for all of us. And he's like, you're in a white room and you're looking for the door. And you find the door and you float out into space and stuff like that. So for some reason, that idea came to me when I was trying to put him to bed one night. And I just made up a visualization for him. And his mind, like he loved it. His mind shut off. Or not shut off, but he switched into sort of imagination mode with his eyes closed, right? Thinking through it. And then he made me do that like every night for quite a while. So I just make up these visualizations as I go on the spot. And then we started to record them just because he wanted to listen to them, the next night if I wasn't there or something like that at bedtime. And then I thought, hey, maybe other people would like these too. So I started posting them. And somewhere along the way, I came up with this concept of having like a magic spaceship. So you can it's just a really convenient plot point. So you can go anywhere and kind of do anything and stuff like that. And also keeps you safe, right? Like I think when kids go to bed, they should go to bed feeling safe and feeling powerful, if that makes any sense, right? So you don't want a scary story. You don't want one where you feel like you're in trouble, right? You should always be the powerful one. And so, I think it makes them shut off their minds a little bit, focus inwards, close their eyes, and just listen. So it's only audio based. And from there, it's kind of adapted. I think I'm on Today, I believe I'm recording episode 214 of the Spaceship series, and then there's been some one-off episodes, same sort of thing, like visualization style, but different stories and stuff like that. And eventually I had kids writing in for ideas for the story. Most recently, we started doing voice clips so they can actually leave a voicemail that we can put into the story as part of it. And yeah, it's been pretty exciting. So,
That's
and I don't
super
know
cool.
about myself. I'm an educator.
Okay,
I'm a
that
high
makes
school
sense.
educator
That
though.
makes
Yeah,
sense
yeah,
now. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Stories, kid. Okay, now it clicks. I'm like, what? What?
Yeah, well, I do a little bit of everything. I don't know. It was
Okay,
like that mostly happened, but yeah, I've always been a creative type, like a drama kid who, yeah, I did a little improv and stuff like that. But
there it is. There it is. Yep,
yeah,
yep.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean I storyboard them in advance, but I pretty much make them up on the microphone and edit
Okay.
them as I go. Like just go back, um, re-record parts that I don't like, or if I mess it up or say it wrong or something like that. But I think it still has that feel of I'm really just making it up at
Mhm.
the time as I go. Yeah, and I think it's helped a lot of people put them to sleep and stuff like that. Like pretty good feedback so far from the people who are listening. Definitely some diehard followers at this point who listen every night, and it's been kind of fun. So who knew?
Right, and you never know with those kind of things. It reminds me someone you may know him. He goes by Mr. Matt Storytime. He also does same kind of ideas. I don't know if his are necessarily like for bedtime specifically though. I think
Yeah,
his are just more geared just for like the daytime, just stories and things like that. Concept very similar here, but so you're an educator, you're a high school educator.
yeah.
How long have you been in that field for, doing that for?
Since about 2009, I'd say. So yeah, and I've been a teacher of different things before that. Like I've been a martial arts instructor. I did that for a little while. Taught karate and stuff like that too. Snowboard instructor. I used to run a kids program when I was a teenager and stuff like that. So grew up around people and kids and things like that. So just kind of used to them. And then when I had kids of my own, that's where I really learned stuff. But
Definitely. No, it all makes sense. So the inspiration, very, very obvious. So is it an everyday kind of podcast that you do? Is it like 7 days a week, or is it multiple times a week, or
it
how often
started
are you
as yeah, it
recording and
started as
posting?
7 days a week. Like when I first started, I did it every single day, but it just became a little too much probably to keep up with.
Mhm.
So I switched to 3 times a week, but really consistently. Like bedtime doesn't have seasons; it's all year long. So I do try to keep putting out three per week. Um, I do Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Basically, I find not as many people need it on the weekend. Right,
Makes
weekends
sense. Yes,
bedtime shifts a little, and we let kids stay up late sometimes, and then they fall asleep easier. I think, but
I agree with that.
yeah, but school nights, that's I think when you need it the most.
I
So
agree. I can 100% agree with that. And school week's hard for a lot of kids. A lot of kids really struggle with that, with the school week. There's a lot going on in our kids' lives in school. Like, I mean, you
yeah,
know it firsthand. Like, you see it from the high school point of view. Like, uh, grades. What's it for their grade 9 through 12 or
yeah, yeah.
okay. So you see it a lot. Do those kids ever? I'm trying to think. What kind of things do you see like among like high schoolers like today? I'm very interested to know like what kind of
Today,
things are bothering high schoolers like lately.
well, I think it's the same thing bothering everybody. Like we're so connected and stuff like that that we have difficulty letting go of being connected to our phones and little sound bites and quick pieces of information, right? Like kids don't listen to as many long form things, like even TV shows. Some kids are mostly all on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. At the same time, though, I think teenagers are kind of the same with different technology, is how I'd put it. Teenagers were kind of like this when I was a kid. The biggest difference is at break time, they're on their phones a lot more and stuff like that instead of necessarily hanging out with each other. I happen to work in a school where phones don't work that well, though. There's just something about the building deflects cellular signals or something like that. It's nothing that's done on purpose, but it definitely, there's poor reception in it. So I notice it a little less there than I have in other places. But kids are kids. Just more online stuff these days, right? Than probably when you and I went to
Hmm.
school. I don't know how old you are, but I'm assuming.
Yeah, we're pretty close in age.
Yeah.
I would assume, but no, I think it's. So, do you feel like your high schoolers that you teach, or high schoolers in general, do you think that they would benefit more or less from like having like phone-free schools to where they have like every locker has a yonder bag and then they have to put their phones in said yonder bag and they lock for the duration of the day. Maybe they can unlock them at their lunchtime, kind of thing. And
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, it's a two-sided thing, right? Like technology can be leveraged for really good things, and
mhm,
it is going to be part of their life. So I think they do need to learn how to manage it as well.
mhm,
But it's also the, like when you work in a school, it's one of the bigger distractions. So they have their cell phones out a lot. They'll be out in class when they're supposed to be listening. So it definitely has the potential to distract from that. So I'd have no problem with a phone-free school. But I also think it's possible to manage phones within the school if you're just uh, strict enough about it at the right times, right? And only allowing them out at the right times, I think, is also possible. So, but yeah, I think society would probably be better off the longer we delay kids having a personal device that they can look at any given moment. I think the better off we are. So maybe, trying to avoid cell phones until, or at least smartphones, I should say, till high school. And then, reducing how often you use them during the day so you can have those periods of time where you're listening for a long period of time to a single thing without having to get that dopamine rush from your phone. I think that would benefit everybody. I think it benefits adults too. Adults have the same issues, right? Like it's
I agree. Yeah, I think it would be. I think you're right on there. I think it would benefit. Like for me, for my kids, like I don't plan on letting them have a smartphone until they're 16.
yeah. Until they can pay for it, maybe, right? Like
Maybe, yeah, some around
yeah.
that concept. Like they can have a phone, but you can
Yeah.
talk and text, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like I'm
I
sorry,
think that would be fair.
you're gonna get made fun of for having a boring phone. And then for me, the other thing is absolutely no social media until you're 16,
Yeah.
or
I
again
mean, I
until
do,
you have
yeah.
that smartphone. I mean, it's the same kind of concept there. Like if you don't have a smartphone, well, obviously you can't really have Snap, you can't really have Instagram or Facebook or anything.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm not gonna let you have it until you're 16. Uh, because it just takes away so much. It takes away.
Well, it does, and digital mistakes are forever, right? Like
Hmm.
we used to live in a world where you might make a mistake, but it wasn't recorded on a phone, right? Kid
Hmm.
gets in a fight, it wasn't recorded on a phone, and for the most part, people didn't have cameras in their pockets. But now, you make one mistake digitally, it has the potential to be there forever, and that's kind of the time in your life where you make mistakes, right?
Hmm. Where you're
So having
supposed
the
to make
power,
mistakes,
yeah, and it's good. I'd be worried if teenagers weren't making mistakes,
right?
but to have the power of posting that all over the internet is something you see teenagers run into a lot, unfortunately, right?
Hmm.
And it can be really hard to get rid of that or live that down. So I think that's the other benefit there is without those things, you can be a little more free to make mistakes without a lifelong impact. So
Agreed.
yeah,
Agreed. Because, and I think the other part of it is too, even with that, with having like a camera in your pocket, they also have access to information, disinformation,
yeah,
misinformation, false information. Because
yeah.
I mean, when you were 16, 17, 18 years old, did you actually know how to do a legitimate search and know what legitimate resources were and what they looked like?
Well, and
Because
they weren't
I,
like they barely existed on the internet at that point, right? Like the legitimate
exactly.
stuff came a little after my high school career. There
We
was
were still, back in our day, we were still using Wikipedia.
yeah. Well, yeah, we were kind of against Wikipedia at the time, I think. I can't
I
remember
think
when
so too.
Wikipedia um came into the mainstream, but we were still it was probably in university for me that
Mm,
professional journals and stuff like that ended up being posted online. So you could actually really do your research on peer reviewed journals and stuff like that online. But in high school, it was mostly like you'd find these random websites that weren't super reliable at all, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And now they have, like, beyond the websites, they have, well, first of all, they have AI, which is a huge thing, like, and a
Hmm.
huge temptation to just have it do the work for you. And don't get me wrong, because AI has a lot of potential. Like, it's really cool. It can teach you things, right? Like,
Hmm.
I've had it teach me video editing, for
Oh,
example.
I've had AI teach me, stuff with my master's level psychology classes,
Oh yeah, yeah,
like to help break down, like, because I have to break down 6 articles. And do I have time to break down 6 articles? I mean, if I absolutely had to, yeah.
yeah,
But if I can put all these 6 articles into ChatGPT and then ask it, like, hey, um, what are the testing points? What are the high points and the low points? What are the I can't even think. All the things you
just
need for like research-based questions, and like what's the research saying here? What are the similarities? Where are they different? And like examine these for me at such a
yeah,
high level that I would have never been able to get to on my own. I would have missed all this stuff, and I probably would just gotten frustrated and given up. But no, because I can use AI to help break down these articles and show me all these different areas of research that I need anyway, I'm
yeah.
learning at such a high. I'm gaining more from it. So I think that's kind of where you were going. I think is that it can be used as a tool if you let it be used as a tool.
Yeah, yeah, basically. You can use it as a way to help you learn. And then you're retaining those skills and that sort of thing, right? But you can also use it as a way to not learn at all,
Mhm.
right? Like, you could have a scenario where, the maybe even the teachers using ChatGPT to create the lessons and the assignments and the readings, and then the students using ChatGPT to answer the questions and write the papers. And no one's actually doing any thinking in that
Mhm.
scenario. So, but you can also use it, yeah, to do research and stuff like that. It can be super helpful. You can use it to teach you new languages. You can use it to teach you how to do stuff that you're going to do longer term. So I think it's not the thing itself, but it's the use of it. And I think
Mhm.
as a teenager, the temptation to just have it do the stuff for you is pretty high. And so I think that's the possible danger with it. But there's so many possible benefits too. Like, and it's only, I mean, it's in its infancy in a lot of ways, and it's crazy good. And it just gets better every year, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think when you and I met online on, was it Threads? It
I
was
think it was
Threads, right?
Threads you were using, and I
Yeah,
recognized it right away.
yeah, yeah,
Because you were posting, oh, send me your your logo kind of thing, and then
yeah.
you
I
posted
thought
it.
we'll try an AI generated logo basically
Yeah,
because I
and
was
then I'm
having
like,
fun with them.
yeah, I'm one of the people that pay for ChatGPT for it because I use it so much. Like I use AI nearly daily. And plus,
Yeah, yeah,
ChatGPT 4 unlocks every single feature. Like, there's features in there that will blow your mind. Like, one thing I found for it is that it has I didn't even know this was a thing, but like a negotiation kind of thing,
hmm,
like the negotiator, and you can put like, help me negotiate a sponsorship with Lego kind of thing for my podcast, and it'll write you an email to send over to Lego. You just have to plug in the parts it tells you to plug in, and it sounds so good. It's like, man, I could never written it.
nice.
I
I'll have to
use it.
try that out to get some sponsors here.
I use it to assist in my newsletter.
Yeah,
Sometimes too, like when I'm really stuck and like I have part of it, and I'm like, man, I
yeah,
really just need a newsletter that will bring some hype and some motivation, and really match this like energy that I have for this like idea kind of thing. So I'll write out my whole idea, like the language and everything. Like this is kind of where I'm at. I'll talk to it just like I'm talking to a person, like bouncing it off a soundboard kind of thing. Which I know sounds really weird to probably a lot of people right now, but the dads probably understand this 100%. Where I'll put it in and I'll put my whole idea. Maybe it's like 2, 3 paragraphs of my idea and kind of exactly what I'm thinking. And I'll put it all in there, and then it'll spit me out exactly what I want. It's like it'll pretty much bring my idea to life.
yeah.
The image features on there are crazy. There's
Other than
a
when you try to put words in things, yeah.
yeah, words are rough.
They
Words are
cannot
rough.
put words and stuff, but it does amazing pictures.
Yeah, it does amazing pictures. There's this one mode on there that I'm not sure if you're familiar with. It's called. Well, I'm looking it up right now. It's called G G GLIBATREE art designer. And pretty much what it is you put your prompt into it, what you want it to be, and then it'll ask you more questions, and then you keep kind of bouncing it back and forth, and then it'll spit you out 4 concepts of that like image. It'll give you 4 image concepts. It takes a little bit, but man, these images are cool. They're really cool.
Yeah.
There's also a
Well, I do it.
tattoo design.
Like I actually take so every now and then I use it for brainstorming too. Like when I'm
Yep,
trying to think, hey, what would happen
100%.
next, right? I haven't loved it for trying to write full episodes. I've done a couple episodes called Bedtime Storytime where it really is like people just give me the ideas and I'm pretty
I've
clear
seen that
about it.
one. I've seen
Yeah,
that.
that I'm like
Yeah.
that it's actually creating and it'll create the episode.
What
So if you see Bedtime Storytime ones,
it
they're
might be
just
the
AI.
it might be the mode. You may have to change the mode you're using. Like instead of just using traditional GPT,
Yeah.
um, change it to one of the other GPTs because there's a little box in the top left corner, I believe,
Yeah,
that
for
says
the different
Explore
GPTs.
GPTs, and I would
Yeah.
explore those. And this is really for anyone. Like look through those, and you're gonna find something that's gonna blow your freaking mind.
Oh yeah, they're
Um,
really cool. I just like making the stories myself better.
oh yeah,
But then
100%.
then I use Headliner to do the transcript for me. So
Oh,
it'll
Headliner's good.
Headliner does a pretty good auto transcript, and then but then I can use ChatGPT to edit it and make it, turn it into a proper form, paragraphs and stuff like that. And then I say, hey, take this transcript and pick 5 exciting parts and make pictures from it, right? And then it makes 5 pictures of the story in its own concept after reading it. And it does a pretty cool job of that too. So I have it generate pictures. We do some of the write up stuff for it. I tend to do the
Definitely.
stories myself. But every now and then, yeah, brainstorm help. Or if I do a bedtime story time episode, it's always fun to just throw in some ideas and have it write something up and see where it takes us to. So
100%. No, I like
yeah,
that. The more information that you give GPT, the better. The more information you can give it, the more you can plug in, the better.
yeah,
One thing I really like about Riverside, the platform that I record on, is that now it's fully integrated with Spotify for podcasters, which is nice. Um, my episodes that are coming out throughout this year, have pretty much all gone video because it's easier. I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to. I'm just like, well, obviously that's what's being pushed, so maybe that'll help gain some exposure, kind of thing. Like, I'll go with the common flow here. Plus, it also Riverside has some great built-in like AI features to where it
yeah,
will automatically like remove silences, it'll remove pauses, it'll remove any awkwardness, it'll auto give me a description, it will auto give me a transcript, it will auto give me breaks and pauses. It will edit things to look better.
yeah. That's pretty neat.
It does so much. It gives me takeaways, description.
Yeah,
It gives me chapters, which is so elite. Like chapters are so fun to give me chapters, transcript, everything. It's all
yeah,
built into one, and it's very convenient. So I really like what it can do there as far as that. I find a lot of benefit from it. But yeah, AI is, I if I would have had it when I was a teenager, I mean, somehow I ended up getting straight A's in high school. I didn't
right.
try very hard. Um, but if I would have had AI in high school, man, I would have been dumb in college. I would
Well,
have been
that's the thing, right? Like, yeah, that's the worry. Yeah.
yeah. In college, I would have.
It's that and there's like less reading and stuff like that going on because you're watching videos and you're doing all that sort of stuff. So
See, and
it's
that's
just
the part that worries me. The
yeah,
videos, like the videos, like I see it all the time. So I work in mental health. I'm a mental health professional, and a lot of parents will send me YouTube videos about, it's like, oh, I found this and I found this, and oh, can you watch this video? Tell me what you think. So I'll watch this video, and I'm like, what the crap are you watching?
like about mental health. These
Yeah,
videos are about yeah,
yeah. So a family sent me one about conduct disorder, and I know what conduct disorder is. I'm very familiar with these different disorders, obviously. And I'm like, is this the kind of research? I didn't know how to approach it, so I may have came off a little wrong. But I'm like, is this the research that you're normally doing um, for your kid here? And they're like, yeah, wasn't that video super helpful? I'm like, no, because It was bias. It said literally one of the symptoms of conduct disorder was being male.
One
So
of the
that's,
symptoms, or
yeah,
one of
one of
the?
the most common traits of conduct disorder is being male. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm done with this video. I'm like, I did
Uh,
not just hear that. I had to watch the video twice to make sure. I'm like,
is it actually like a higher risk factor if you're male? Like, is it a more likely thing to have when you're male?
girls can have it too. It
For
manifests
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
differently between
Yeah.
male and females. I would say yes, more boys have it than girls.
Yeah. But it's not a symptom. That's a.
Yeah, it's just a common cause. It's just a
Yeah.
you
It's a
know,
correlation.
it's a correlation. It's not
Yeah.
causation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That thank you. You helped me out there. I was like, there are two C words in here. One not
Yeah.
always the other
Correlation
kind of thing.
versus causation. That's a big one
Yeah,
we have trouble with as humans a lot of the
yeah.
time. So.
And so that was like just frustrating. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh. Um,
Yeah.
I'm like, from how about now? Now that you're working with us and working with a team, let's when you have questions, ask us before going to the internet. So that's kind of where I was thinking earlier. My thought I had earlier to kind of get back on those rails, talking about the kids and whatnot, is that they can have all this access to information. Doesn't mean it's good information. The best information that our kids can get is from you at home, because that is their, at least in my eyes, should be their most trusted source of information.
Right.
To where it should
But
be
even their
coming from
parents,
firsthand.
like information these days is a crazy thing because I said this the other day, but I watched one flat Earth video on Facebook, right? And guess what pops up on my Facebook feed all the time?
Flat Earth now.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
So like you get whatever. If you show like any interest in anything, it starts to feed that same thing back to you, right? And then yeah, if you kind of avoid watching it, your algorithm changes a bit. But as far as you're going to get the information that you find interesting or the stuff you believe in these days, rather than kind of an unbiased mix of information. So I really wish the algorithm was something more like, hey, that was a fun video, but maybe there's counterpoints to this you should watch as well. And they
Exactly.
actually like they
Get the
actively found,
whole.
and then you get the whole picture, but you don't get, you kind of get whatever you believe in, I
Yeah,
think,
and it
already
sends
right
you
now.
down the rabbit holes, and it sends you down, and so
Yeah.
that's the part that I worry about with kids, especially because
Oh yeah.
they don't have the level of judgment. They don't have the frontal cortexes developed in their brain to, you know, manage this information. They don't have the reasoning ability at their
Yeah. Yeah.
age, just psychologically speaking, developmentally speaking, to sort through this information. They're just going to believe it because it sounds good, sounds cool, sounds
Well, it's
right.
another great use of like Chat GPT that you can do is like if you get one of those posts that sounds weird and you're like, is this information about the flat Earth actually true?
Mm-hmm.
You can put it in Chat GPT, and it'll, even if it's like a picture based thing, you throw it in there, it analyzes it, and it goes like, no,
Yeah,
these are the counterpoints and stuff like that. Like this
very
is what's
true.
scientifically proven. It actually does a really good job of kind of taking that information and finding the scientific basis behind it or the scientific reasons that it's not true based on research, and it does a great job of that. So as far as kind of should I believe this or not, it does a good job. At least I'm sure it could be programmed to be completely biased itself too, and I know
100%,
that,
which is
yeah,
a
there's
lot of
political
what
biases built into these things as
there's a
well, for
lot.
example. So
Yeah,
especially I think the Google one had some criticism for that for sure, right?
it
But
does. Yeah, and
yeah,
they're working on that at the congressional level to keep it as unbiased as possible. I mean, they fired Sam Altman, who was the creator, then they brought him back.
right,
Um,
because what do you, yeah.
and so, I mean, which is a positive. But I mean, really overall in the US, we're in for, I don't know when this year this is going to come out, but maybe uh, no matter what time of year this comes out, this will be relevant if as long as it's before the election. The
Yeah.
election, we're in for a huge swing. We're going to see blue states turn red, or yeah, we're going to see blue states. We're going to see swing states that we've never seen swing before. We're going to
Our
see,
blues and reds are mixed up in Canada, so like
yeah,
I always get confused. Blue is
blue is
blue is
Democrats
your
here and red is
Democrats, yeah, and
Republicans.
it's,
So the
yeah, and
left is,
red's liberal here and blue is conservative. So
huh, interesting. Well, I
I
feel
think
like we're
that's the
about to,
opposite, right?
yeah, that's the
Yeah,
opposite. We're going to
yeah,
flip. Like a state like New York is going to flip this year. I see it. I've seen too many posts. I've seen too many things happening. to where firefighters, first responders, blue collar workers are all, swinging. These large minority groups are swinging. That
Yeah.
were normally built in blue, but now blue had those votes, and I don't want to get too far political. I don't care about talking about politics, but these minority groups are being like, well, yeah, I vote for you, but you haven't done crap for me for the last 20 years. But when I vote for them, something gets done in my community, so I'm gonna swing over here, kind of thing. So big
Yeah, we'll
blue
see what
areas,
happens.
big blue areas are going to be swinging. Reds are going to stay red. It's going to be a wild and crazy election season. The back third of this year is going to be pretty wild and crazy. Not to talk about anything else that's going on just worldwide, but really there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going
Yeah,
on in
I
the
think
world.
anytime there's like an economic crisis of to an extent, or the rates of inflation and the cost of living and all that stuff, it always changes people's political
Mhm.
viewpoints. So I think the same sort of things happening in
Especially.
Canada. Like we're a little further from an election, but
Mhm,
I think it'll be a very different election, the next one, as far as who votes for whom.
mhm.
Um, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
Especially when you can compare the last 12 years to each other, to where it's like, okay, those 4 years, things were higher, and then, oh wow, we had this great economic success the next 4 years, and then, wow,
Yeah,
these last 4 years have been absolutely terrible. Wow,
yeah, yeah.
correlation is absolutely causation here, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, exactly. It's
And
hard
like,
though because it was like all of those decisions made during COVID and things
hmm
like that have
but
led to a very different world.
yeah,
And
and
whether
we
that's
see how just terrible those decisions have been.
right, but they were, I mean, like nobody knew better. I
Yeah.
don't think, right? Like everybody
Mm,
was doing the best they could at the time, I think. But yeah, it's all over the place.
yeah.
And it had some serious consequences on mental health.
Yes.
There was definitely a mental health thing there that you see post COVID, or maybe accelerated stuff that was already happening might be the better way to put it.
I
Um,
agree.
but it had a huge effect on society and where we've been afterwards, I think.
Yeah.
So
So we could, jump into conspiracy theories and whatnot.
yeah, we
I mean,
could.
it
Yeah,
definitely it definitely accelerated things in Canada there, where it came to censorship and things like that. I think COVID definitely pushed a lot of things there in Canada that it probably would have never seen.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, and
you
same
know,
online, right? Like all
yeah.
of it pushed a lot of platforms to take a stance on whether they're going to censor or not censor
hmm
viewpoints,
Yeah.
because they decided one side's right and one side's wrong, and like whether you agree with that or not, it was still deciding that we were going to show one side over the other.
hmm
So
Like, isn't it like
yeah,
there's some podcasts that are like banned in Canada there? Like
I don't know. I
Joe
don't
Rogan's banned. Like you can't get Joe Rogan
know.
in Canada.
Joe Rogan's not banned in Canada.
Is it not?
No,
Oh, I thought it was. I thought
no,
there
no,
was
no, no.
shows that were banned, like podcasts and different things like that, that were
I don't
banned.
think there's anything that's banned like that. I think there's just on certain platforms, um, and it's more like it would be the same thing as in the States. Like certain platforms have certain content rules that have changed what can be shown. There were some changes to the laws that allow news to be shown. So like what you don't get anymore on Facebook here is news. Um, so it used to be that you could send all of these news articles and they go all over the place. And the government changed some regulations, and Facebook just said, like, you know what, we can't keep up with those regulations, so you just can't have news anymore. So there's just no news on
Huh.
Facebook anymore here. That's probably the biggest difference in terms of our laws and how that's affected censorship. But I don't think it's been. I think people have a different view of how censored things are in Canada. Like you can still watch anything. Yeah, you can definitely listen to Joe Rogan. I don't think it's ever been banned or censored or anything like that. Like it's all on the same platforms. It's just platform based if they censor things or not. And then Canada did make some specific rules that made those tech giants make some different decisions about what they could or couldn't show. So, but
Definitely.
I'm not an expert on this. Like there's way more to that.
Yeah,
This I
I
don't
would
know
have to look
about. Yeah,
way more into it too.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. The mental health side of it has absolutely been accelerated. Um, in on itself since COVID. Like,
yeah,
man, I've seen it firsthand. Um, I feel like now we're trying to clean up the pieces. We're trying to just clean up things because, I mean, you take a child who was just barely starting preschool. 3, 4 years ago. Which, I mean, our children were right in that age category to where they had just barely getting started. They were just learning all these social skills and things like that, and then boom, nothing.
Yeah,
Isolation, isolation,
yeah.
isolation. Like kids can't learn in isolation. Kids can't progress in isolation. Kids can't learn through a screen. They're not meant to. That's not how the human mind. That's not how humans are supposed to interact. Is
Well,
through
especially at that age, right? Like that's when you're supposed to learn how to read and write and do stuff. And online learning doesn't work unless you already have those foundational skills.
exactly. But
Yeah.
then parents, we're not equipped to teach them how to read. Like, yeah,
Yep.
we know our ABCs and we know what sounds and everything make, but we're not trained to teach someone how to read. Like, I'm
And you
not.
might not have had the time, right? Like different people had different amounts of time.
Hmm.
Different people, different households, single parent households, a lot harder to keep up with online learning.
Hmm.
So it really changed who it made the divide wider, I think,
It
in terms of learning.
definitely
Yeah.
widened the gaps there.
But I think we were already like for mental health and stuff, I think when you look at the numbers, we were already headed in the wrong direction for I think other reasons too. And COVID maybe accelerated it and made it worse for a bit, but I think it started before COVID too. And
100%.
yeah.
Because, I mean, before COVID, you had the show, I'm pretty sure it was out before COVID, 13 Reasons Why was starting to get a lot
Oh,
of
that was, yeah.
traction. I'm pretty sure that was
Yeah,
right
right
before.
near the beginning of COVID, I think. I remember being news articles and stuff about that one.
Hmm. So it was just
Yeah.
getting to the forefront, and that was a very big eye opener for a lot. A lot of people were talking about that show. A lot of people were talking about 13 Reasons Why, and it was like getting made fun of. Like, oh, you're my 13th reason, and blah 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 blah
Oh, really?
blah. Oh, your reason number this and stuff like that. Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous, but it was already starting. It was already starting like before COVID. There was already a really high bullying, really high suicide rate, but they weren't as bad. Like the adolescent suicide rate wasn't quite as bad. The suicide rate among LGBTQ plus youth wasn't as bad. Like it wasn't as much of a crisis as it is now. The numbers
Yeah.
were a lot smaller ratio. Like it was manageable. Like our agency in particular before COVID, staff was we didn't have a lot of kids in our program because there was a need, but it wasn't like a ginormous need. And now we have wait lists upon wait lists for our children's outpatient. We're opening up new sites. We're hiring people like at an insane rate to do this job,
Yeah.
to serve these youth and families. Like
Yeah.
it
It could
just
be.
boomed.
Yeah. No, and I think it's a combination of all those things.
So I think the biggest piece of it was the lack of socialization for these kids. Is like they didn't learn. I mean, they had to take a couple of years off from socializing, essentially. I mean, they could
Yeah.
socialize
Yeah.
online, so then they just got like ballsy, essentially, and said whatever they wanted behind a screen because they were
Yeah.
safe. They were safe to do so. There's no consequences. There's no recommendations for when you say something online. Like if you're playing Call of Duty and you're talking crap to a kid, or you're another kid saying mean, harsh, hurtful things toward another kid that you don't know, but you're saying them anyway because you feel powerful in that moment. Nothing's gonna happen. Maybe you'll get reported. Ooh, I'll get reported on
Yeah.
Xbox Live. Ooh, big deal. What are they gonna do? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So,
it definitely changed. And it also changed, your level of responsibility and accountability during that time was a lot lower. So you didn't, it's pretty hard to chase somebody to get their work done or to do what they're supposed to do. So they got away with a different level of
mhm.
not getting it done, depending though, right? So some households kept going as normal and just, but there's a big divide on what people were able to do, right? It really outlined an amazing amount of, privilege that some people had and that they could stay home as well and that they could help their kids and that they could do all that stuff, whereas other people couldn't. And you see that divide that was normally filled by school a little bit because everybody goes to school and then there's teachers there helping and stuff like that. But when that wasn't there to kind of even the playing field, I think it changed how certain groups were doing, and created a bit of a bit of a bigger gap in places that'll, I think it'll come back to normal to an extent, but it'll take a while depending on where you were in life and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
who knows? Because nothing like that's really happened exactly before.
Yeah.
um,
I think it's gonna take as long to remedy as it happened. We're gonna
yeah,
have
yeah,
to be 3 years removed to see it kind of self-correct and course correct.
yeah,
Like the timelines need to equal and balance, and we need to essentially get back that time that we lost, which you can't really get it back. You just kind of have to keep going, and pick up essentially like where you left off. But I'm seeing it a lot now, especially with like elementary age kids, like kindergarten, first graders, second graders, who were highly impacted during that time. Like the amount of kids with just issues in this like age range are crazy. Like 5 to 9. Like
yeah. Interesting.
there's a lot in this age range that are really struggling with mental health disorders. A lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of just like left behind, a lot of education missed. Reading skills are behind, writing skills are behind, math skills are behind. Social skills, oh my goodness, social skills are insanely behind. Being able to talk and hold a conversation and just one word answer. Kids just flee and want to be on their devices because that's all they know. All they've been given is just different devices.
Well, and the
That
devices might be part of the issue, right? Like beyond COVID,
100%.
it like we have also increased their ability to be on those devices from a really young age and to be distracted by those things. And I think that has a huge correlation to some of the mental health stuff going on too. But difficult to prove causation, I think sometimes, right? It's that correlation causation thing. So knowing exactly what it is that's affected these things. And then there's a lot of students like most students are fine, is the other thing I'd say that we have to remember. There is a bigger group of students who have difficulty than there were. But most students are still, they're fine.
Yeah.
Most, like, they're doing okay. They're doing their job. They're doing their work. They're learning, and they're in a really, really good place. It really just depends on where you're at, I think. And as I said, I think it's increased the number of people who aren't fine, but there's still the large majority of people are doing okay.
Yeah.
Post this. But your job, you probably see mostly the people who aren't.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And in my job, I notice mostly the people who aren't. So I always have to remind myself, most of them are actually okay. Like, most of them are
Yeah.
fine.
I would say, yeah. I
Um,
would say most. I
yeah.
would say you're right. Most kids are okay. Most
Yeah,
have.
but there's more who aren't than there were before, for
Mhm.
sure. Like that's increased. And I think it was increasing already just before COVID too. So as far as mental health numbers go, like I think 2019, they were getting pretty high as
Mhm.
well already.
And I feel
Um,
like even now, like more parents are afraid to let their kids like do stuff. I've seen more and more parents are a little bit more hesitant to like enroll in like a like boys and girls club or YMCA or like a team sport or thing like that. They're a little bit more
right.
hesitant. They're a little bit more reserved to do those things. To let their kids do different things that they were doing, before. So it's interesting how things have changed.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I see the biggest thing a lot for the kids I work with is they need, some mindfulness, and the work on their inside mind. I'm not saying they don't have one, because they definitely have one. It's just it's very underdeveloped. It's very underdeveloped as they get into kindergarten, first, second, third grade. Like
yeah.
they should be able to calm themselves down, but they cannot regulate. They have
Well,
no
if you think like
regulation skills.
you didn't need mindfulness as much when you were waiting in line at Tim Hortons and you didn't have a smartphone.
Hmm.
Or I say Tim Hortons, that's a thing in
Yeah,
Canada.
I know what
I
you're
don't
talking
even think
about.
it's a thing down there. You're waiting at Starbucks, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, and now you can just look at your phone the whole time and you never have to be alone with your thoughts.
Hmm.
And so there's like, I think more often people can just be alone with their thoughts, or just focus on the moment they're in and stuff like that, the better off they are. But there's fewer opportunities because you can always pull out your cell phone. You can always be stimulated by something else that's external. And adults have trouble with it. I have trouble with it. Like it's one of those things. You get a dopamine rush from scrolling on your phone, watching short videos and all that sort of stuff. I was saying the other night, even when I try to go to watch a television show, Um, it's sometimes I have to remember to put my phone further away from me so I don't end up accidentally checking a notification and then missing the entire show I'm watching. It's it's a really easy time in society to just be distracted by something external all the time. So that internal part doesn't exist anymore. Which is again like part of the podcast idea is let's turn inward for a while. Like let's use our imagination and close our eyes. So I never do video because it would be, exposed to blue light at nighttime and watching something instead of imagining something. And I think it's really important to imagine something,
Definitely.
to use your brain to do that. Yeah.
Definitely. Like I recently got back into reading books. I got back into book reading and things like that. Because like I haven't done that in so long, and I was like, man, I'm so tired of being on my phone. Like Friday,
Yeah.
like this last Friday, it's Sunday while we're recording this. So Friday I worked from home. I was staring at computer screens all the day long, all day
Yeah.
long. And so when I was finally done with work, my girls were on their TV in the room. They were playing, so the TV was mostly background noise. To them, they were playing, coloring, playing Play-Doh, playing Barbies. Like they kept themselves busy all day. We went to the park midday to get some light, air, um, kind of thing. But once it was like I was off and I was done, like I shut my computer and I turned all the screens off in the house. I turned
Yeah.
everything off. I'm like, we're doing stuff. I don't care what we're doing, but we're doing something.
Doing
Um,
something different. Yeah.
and then
I
yesterday,
started instituting daddy playtime, which is, at night they get home from school. Often their mom's still doing some stuff before I get home. So they go on their devices for a bit, which is fine. Like
mhm,
they can watch a little bit. I'm not the kind who wants to keep people away from media and things like that. I just think it needs to be limited. But then they'd stay on a little too long, right? Like they'd keep going. So we've instituted sort of a nightly right after dinner. We do daddy playtime, which is really hard on me because I'm like running around, rolling around on the floor. It's like, wrestling and those sorts of things that you sometimes don't do. You can just sit on your phone all night. So we're trying to actively do things that aren't that. So more work on the parent, I think, sometimes because you end up being one of the ones involved in entertaining them or getting them to do something themselves to entertain themselves that's not a screen, but really, really important part of everything. And yeah, I'm more of an audiobook guy myself. So
yeah, I do love me some audiobooks. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I mostly listen to podcasts, and my coworkers think it's so weird.
Oh, really? Like that you don't listen to
I
music or
don't listen to
something, you
music
mean? Or
during the day, really.
yeah, yeah.
No,
I
like
don't either.
I can't. I get bored. I get bored
Yeah.
by it. The only
Yeah. I
time
need
I'm
the long form podcasts or audiobooks. Those are my favorites. So.
yeah, I need something. I need something that's like gonna keep my mind like stimulated. Like the only time I'm really listening to the radio is when I'm in the car.
Yeah.
Because it's like preset. My daughter, we like to listen to the country station in the morning on the way to school. Because they play the tasty tweets. The tasty tweets are pretty much our way of knowing that we're like on time for school in the morning. So shout out to 102.3 Big D and Bubba. You are our morning routine during the week. So,
There you go.
but yeah,
Yeah, I listen a little. We'll listen to some music when we're on road trips with the kids because nobody else in my family likes podcasts and audiobooks as much as I do. Plus, you can't really just make other people listen to an audiobook that's halfway finished
true.
or whatever when they jump in the car. But that's my go-to when I'm alone, anyways. The music's kind of when other people are around. So
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with that. So I struggle. Like if I'm not listening to a podcast, I'm just like, man, I'm bored. Why am I so bored
yeah,
right now?
yeah. I listen to them. Yeah, when I clean or when I do
Mhm,
chores or when I do anything like that, it's definitely a podcast or an audiobook going on.
exactly.
Um, yeah, it's always the background, and it stimulates your mind. Like I like that sort of thing. So I like thinking and I like imagining, and as long as you're doing a task that doesn't also require you to think, it's not too bad.
Mm-mm. Yeah, like while I
Yeah,
was like, I found these two really cool daily podcasts that are Monday through Friday. They're both politic based, and it's important to be informed. I feel for dads
yeah,
especially
yeah.
to be informed on what's going on in the political landscape around you and worldwide. So I found these two really good podcasts: The President's Daily Brief with Mike Baker, and then America on Trial with Josh Hammer. It's about 30-ish minutes of content, and it's definitely like my morning-ish routine at this point. Um, they're both. I really enjoy them both. I like the political banter on both of them. They're short, they're sweet, they're to the point. They tell me everything going on in the world so that I'm informed, kind of thing, which is helpful, which is important. So I enjoy
Right.
those, but then I also like long form podcasts, PBD, Joe Rogan, friends podcasts who I've met and connected with. I like to listen to theirs and see what they're talking about and things like that. So,
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
but
Some of that you can listen to around kids, and some you can't. I think.
yeah,
So, yeah.
but I think you're right. It's hard for us as individuals, heck, even for myself as an adult, to be like inside of my own mind. I think that's why like the last couple nights, because I was telling you pre-show how I've just kind of passed out and like fallen asleep.
Yeah.
I put my phone down and I just laid on the couch and just like let my mind wander into the nothingness that it is, and
Yeah.
ultimately like my mind and my body were just grateful. They were like, oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Well, it's one of those. It's most of the time when I can't sleep, it's because I'm thinking too much, like thinking about things I have to do or that I've done or whatever, right? So something simple to focus on always helps me. I used to listen to the Sleep With Me podcast with I forget who it's by. Pretty good following though, and he basically just rambles on for an hour about his thoughts and random things, or like summarizes an episode of Breaking Bad or something weird. Like he always does these different things. He just makes it go for an hour, and it's kind of interesting enough to pay attention to, but not so interesting that you can't fall asleep to it. So that was kind of my goal with the stories too. Like I'm okay if people fall asleep halfway through the story. That's the idea. My kids do sometimes. They can listen to it the next night or whatever again if they want to know what happens. But it's something at least exciting to look forward to. Puts your mind on it, and then if you fall asleep, you're all good. It's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
Which is why I have them fade out into music at the end, right? Instead of just going to another episode and continuing that cycle. Because I used to put on stories podcasts for my kids. Specifically, I used to always use the stories podcast, which is a great podcast with stories. But it would, yeah, it just goes right into the next story if you don't have the sleep timer set and things like that. So I think it's that transition that's important too. I'm not sure how many people like the music at the end or the noise, or how many people just skip to the next one or something. But
there's probably a portion of both that like both kind of thing. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I started adding chapters in though too, just so the story's one, so you could end it at the end of the chapter if you wanted to, or you can let the music play. So
nice. No, that's smart. I think chapters are really good for a lot of people because then they can kind of skip around the podcast. They're like, oh, okay, this topic's kind of boring. Let me jump down to the description, or let me slide this little bar and
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the chapters are huge. Yeah, I just started adding them recently, so we'll see.
Yeah,
I have to go back to my older ones and add them in too.
Yeah, they're fun. They're easy, but it definitely makes the video a little bit more engagement driven because they're like, well, I'm not really loving this part right here. For people that listen to my show, they know like, hey, the beginning takes a little bit to get going. It takes about 5-10 minutes for the conversation to get really, really good. I mean, granted, ours was good from the beginning, but
that's true.
Sometimes it takes a little bit for those things to get going or to hit a topic to where like people really want to start listening or like really engaging kind of thing, and like get slogged through the beginningness. So everyone's a little bit different to what they prefer there, which is okay. But chapters definitely give podcasts an element of like power to keep people engaged longer. Because it's definitely hard to when you see like a clip of a podcast online, like on Instagram or YouTube, you're like, man, that looks really good. And then you go and click on it, and it's an hour long. It's just like, there's that knee jerk. It's like, I don't have an hour. Yes, you do. Put it on in your headphones and go do something else.
I got one review that said too long for a kids podcast. And I was wondering, like, are you like, did you read the description and know that the story's only 15 minutes and the rest of it's like noise? Because it does look like it's an hour, but it's, it's not even close to an hour. So
yeah, no, mine are definitely an hour.
Yeah.
But it's an hour of good conversation. I have one drop in with one that dropped with Mr. Nice Guy. We went for 2 hours.
Wow.
We weren't even trying.
Yeah.
We just got enthralled in the conversation for 2 hours. That's the longest podcast I've ever done. I didn't know I could sit down and do a 2-hour podcast. I'm even surprised myself. Like I've gone hour 15, hour and a half, but 2 hours. I was like, man, this is crazy. And then the chapters on that one are insane. The takeaways are insane on that one. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Go back and listen to the one with Mr. Nice Guy. Great
Yeah,
podcast.
I'll check it out.
At the time of this recording, it's not out yet, but by the time it drops,
I'll
it'll be
check
out.
it out eventually then.
Yes, you will. But anyways, anything else for you that you've learned from? Actually, I guess before I ask you that question, let me go ahead and give a shout out to this week's sponsor of the podcast, the June app. That's JOONAPP, June app. It's a great app if your kids are struggling with behavior, habits, or routine. If your kids are struggling with their morning routine, brushing their teeth, brushing their hair, getting dressed, getting their backpack ready, all the morning chaos kind of thing. Or if they're struggling with their nighttime routine, their sleep hygiene, showering, pajamas, clean clothes, packing their bags, sending their clothes out for the next day, anything like that. Or you want them to incorporate, packing their own lunch in the morning or at night for the day before, whatever it is that you want them to do. Habits, behaviors, routine that you need help with and need corrected. Well, June is a great place to look. You can give your kids specialized habits and routines and tasks within the app. And then they complete these things within the app, earn coins to then go and play a video game, essentially, to where they're taking care of a pet. It's kind of like a modern Tamagotchi, if you would. If you know, you know. And they take care of their little pets. They're called daughters, and they're really fun. They can buy things for their pets, and then they can go explore the world. But to play the games within the app, they have to have coins to play the game. The only way they earn coins is by doing their tasks and their chores and their habits and routine, and getting them signed off by the parent. Really cool. The kid can't just do it and instantly get the coin. The coins, their tasks get sent to you as a parent on your side of the app to go and review to make sure that they actually did the task. You can assign how much each task is worth. You can assign how much each thing's worth and how much it's going to be valued. If it's just a habit thing, cool. It's just a habit thing, 2 coins. If it's something bigger that you really want them to establish, more coins. More of those kind of little hits along the way. So with June, JOON, you can try it for absolutely for free, and then use my code YNGDAD for 25% off of your subscription rate. You can find more information about the June app on joonapp.io/youngdad to learn more about the app. And again, you can try it for free and see why over a million families, over 1,000 therapists, myself included in both those numbers, are recommending June. So, and again, that's down in the description of the episode, along with in my link tree as well, which is across all bios on social media, where you can find all the deals, promos, sponsorships, and everything that we do on the Young Dad podcast as well. So, with that,
that's awesome. Like my daughter loves lists, so she has a bedtime list. She's got a morning list, and I assume I can put pick a podcast on that list too. Yep. Can I?
You can customize the tasks on there. You can put your own tasks that you want her to do on there. Assign them different coin values. You can take care of different little pets, decorate them, buy them little clothes and trinkets, things like that. Play games
that's cool.
For the overworld. It's a really cool, fun, interactive app.
That's neat. I'll have to check it out.
If you do want to go back and listen to an actual episode of that, I want to say it's episode 89 of the podcast, where I had the director of clinical strategy on the podcast from the app, right when we formed this awesome partnership. I'm going to look right now real quick. But with that, is there anything else that you want to highlight from your podcast with you in general? Anything that you want to leave the audience?
I don't know. I would just ask, check it out. I think it does really help with bedtime. It's one of those stories podcasts that you can actually listen to at night because it doesn't have the loud noises. It doesn't have the crazy stuff, right? It's exciting enough to listen to, but easy enough to fall asleep to as well. And so it can really be that one last story, I think, as part of the routine. And if you're using this June app, you can, I say just add it in. It's one of those things at the end, right?
Because then they click it off and then they get the coins and you approve it. And the June app's really cool. Cool. There's a reason that I support it and I use it and I promote it on my podcast because I have found just incredible benefits just with my children as well.
Well, that's awesome. And then the other thing I take story suggestions too. So it's kind of an interactive piece. People can leave voicemails with story suggestions. Sometimes those get played on the podcast, or they can write in ideas. And I have to pick and choose at this point a little bit more than I used to have to.
Darn.
There was a point where almost every single one got made, but now I have to kind of pick here and there.
That is so cool, though.
Um,
That is so
yeah, but it's
cool that
really
you got
neat,
to
and
that point. Like, that's incredible.
yeah, and I love hearing the listener suggestions and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. It's just a dad in his basement, which is where I am right now, recording
What you could do,
recording these things.
idea, is when you do put out for suggestions, maybe make like a Qualradics like survey kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So then you can kind of see the most common like themes and everything, and create like
Yeah,
different
I'd love to
data
have a
points.
voting
So
thing where people can see kind of what else has been put in and they could like vote something up or something like that would be
exactly.
neat too, right?
Yeah. So
Like here's the ideas, here's the recordings, and people could vote up which one they kind of want next.
exactly.
But I haven't figured out what platform to do for that.
I would
It's
say
one thing at a time with me.
Yeah, no, I would say Qualradics would be a really good one because you can create like different data points for something. You can create like a slide menu, like rank
Right.
these to which one you'd be most interested in. Like take your top 10 and then people rank those top 10, and then you can see where everyone's putting like the episodes kind of thing, like what ideas are the best kind of thing. So I use Qualradics for my I used it for my master's degree. And so we had to do a lot of
Nice.
data point research projects. Qualradics was a tool we used, and it made it really helpful. Like I did a survey on de jure segregation, and which, if anyone's unfamiliar with de jure segregation, it was the legal segregation in the United States of colored and whites post World War II. So over the last 2-3 generations in our country. So a very interesting topic. But no, it definitely helps create. If I can capture data points on something like that with Qualradics, then the
Yeah, yeah, I'll have to try
survey
it out.
overall. Another good one, Survey Monkey is another really easy one to use.
Yeah, I've used that one before a few times
So there's
for that sort
platforms,
of thing.
but I think that would be
Oh
really
yeah, yeah.
cool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, and it's available anywhere you get your podcasts, I think.
Definitely. And what's it called
Like
again? One more time. Where can people find you?
technically it's technically called Dad's Bedtime Stories for Kids. Available anywhere you get
Let me
quality
let me
podcasts.
put this to the test. Put this to the test.
Yeah.
Dad.
What are you gonna search for it on
Bed.
some random app or
Oh, maybe yeah. I'm gonna search it on Pocket Cast.
there you go. I don't know if I'm on Pocket Cast for sure. I probably am. I'm on everything I could sign up for that I knew of.
Dad's Bedtime Stories for Kids. Door Kids for Kids.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, it doesn't sound like it came up on Pocket Cast right away.
I don't think so. Maybe
I'll
it's
have to
just
look into Pocket Cast.
Sad Bedtime Stories. I'm pretty sure it's one of those on like Spotify for podcasters or on whatever distribution you're using.
Right. Yeah, I use Podbean, so it's a bit different, I think, but they have links to most of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah, you can
seeing it
definitely
on
get it
here.
like Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Audible, all of those like, Player FM
Oh,
and
I found it on
all of that stuff.
Apple.
Oh, it is on there.
On Apple, that's
Yeah,
a
that looks like it.
bad glare.
Yeah, you can't quite see it, the picture of the dinosaur and the spacesuit thing there, but it's pretty good.
But yeah, no, it's weird. It's not coming up on Pocket Cast. Pocket Cast definitely is growing. I would definitely look into that because it makes it like really easy
Yeah.
for people to look at their podcast. Because then you literally have like a front screen
Yeah.
that you have like just a screen, and it just has like the boxes of each
Yeah, yeah.
that you can use. Oops. And so you just have basically your whole catalog, and you can just click right there instead of having to search and see bars and suggestions. It says bam, everything you've already liked and followed right
Nice. I'll have to
there.
check it out.
So I'm a big fan of Pocket Cast, but yeah, man, definitely go and support my friend here, support Mr. Martin, Dad's Bedtime Stories. Lots of engagement over on Threads, anywhere you get your podcast. Fun dude, great conversation today. I appreciate it. I love when we can have mental health focused episodes, especially talking about kids' mental health because it's not talked about nearly enough. Us as adults, we're too worried about ourselves. From time to time, I feel it's like we're worried about us. We're not worried about the kids. Like we're worried about our own kids individually. Like my 6-year-old goes to therapy every other week. But that's because she's been through a divorce. She struggles with big behaviors, emotional breakdowns, and things like that. Like she struggles with these things very much so, and like I see it. But of course, I see it for my kids because I work in the field. But I also know that I can't help my kid because they're my kid. They're too much
Yeah.
like me. I can't help myself. I do things for myself, but I can't treat myself. So I have to go somewhere else to get treated by someone else kind of thing. So the same concept there. But yeah, definitely it's so important to pay attention to our kids' mental health. Bedtime is crucial. Proper sleep for our kids, no matter the age, is so important. Maybe you have a high schooler that maybe is struggling with bedtime. Maybe they just need a story to feel some
Yeah.
comfort. High
There you
school,
go.
maybe it's not as cool, but they don't got to tell no one what podcasts they're listening to. Um, I think podcasts are great for kids of all ages. Let your kids listen to podcasts. There's kids that do
That's
podcasts.
right.
Like my 6-year-old is
Yeah.
going to be starting a podcast. It's going to be called Sitting Down with D, to where she's going to talk about. She has a whole list of topics. It's pretty insane, but
Nice. I say like get some time to yourself. Like have me tell the last story before bed.
yeah,
It's,
exactly. Let someone else
do
do
your thing, but kids always want one more story. So put one on that they can fall asleep to, and yeah, give it a try.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Just a story, just a podcast.
It's just a
Um,
story. It's just a dad making up weird stories. So
yeah, and our kids love weird stories. Maybe you'll hear random
yeah, they
giggling,
do.
and then the next minute you hear silent, and they're out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
but Matt, Martin, this has been great. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks for having me.
and it's been a good time. We'll stay connected. Let's see if the audience is still
Sounds
with
good.
us
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Let me know when things are coming out, and
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was, I was just saying, let me know when things are coming out, and I'll post some stuff as well. So
For sure, man. Well, I appreciate your time. It's been a good one.
thank you.